you wonder why there are so many divorces and so many marriage breakdowns in this day and age. Now, I want to explore a few reasons as to why marriages are collapsing and the reason why they really can't stand the test of time. There are many fundamentals that inform the reason why marriages are not standing, and principal among these was the paradigm of marriage as we have today is very different. It's very divorced, no pun intended, from the paradigm of marriage that we had back in the day. Now, I speak here in an African setup, for an African setup. I want to explore a few reasons why a lot of African marriages are falling apart today. A lot of young people are filing for divorce, but you find out that their parents hardly ever had any divorces happening. There's a reason why in today's world marriages are collapsing. Now, I spoke earlier about a paradigm. Now, there are paradigms that inform how people live their lives. You live out your life out of a certain way of thinking, a certain world view. Now, the African marriage setup today is modeled on the Western standard, according to Western values, and this was not always the case. Back in ancient times, before colonialism, before slavery, Africans had a standard and they had a paradigm of marriage that was very, 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 very different from today's setup. Now, in ancient times, when someone wanted to get married or decided to get married, this was not just an individual's decision or that individual and his or her partner's decisions between the two of them. No, it was a whole village. There were a whole lot of people that were involved and that were supposed to be involved every step of the way, from the first moment right up until these people are married and throughout their married life. Now, in ancient times in Africa, marriages essentially in most cases were arranged. That's not to say that there were no cases where people decided by themselves who they were going to marry. No, there were many of those cases, but there was always a major involvement of family in the marriage decision, in who you decided to marry and why you wanted to marry them. Now, when you married, a guy married into a family, in the African context, you were not just marrying that young lady, that girl, you were marrying the entire family. And conversely as well, if a woman, a lady, a girl decided to get married to a guy, she was marrying his entire family, not just him. So marriage was never just about me and you, me and her, him and her, her and me. It was me and her entire family and clan, her and my entire family. In the old African setup, aunties had a lot of power and influence, and a lot of times they had the deciding card, the deciding vote on this issue of marriage. When I say aunties, I'm referring to your father's sister. In Shona, that would be Tete. In Isindebele, that would be Ubabagazi or auntie, as is now commonly referenced by people. So your aunt's influence in marriage was never to be understated. The aunties played a critical role in deciding or in helping decide the marriage of a guy or a girl, right? So why aunties were involved, first of all, is because your auntie in the African context is regarded as your father, because she is your father's sibling. So she can take a decision that your father can take, and she does not necessarily have to be answerable to anyone except your father. So they were trusted with the ability to make decisions that were sound, and in many cases they did. So what role aunties would play was that they would vet the candidate for marriage. They would vet, if a guy wants to get married, the auntie would vet the girl whom this guy wants to marry. So the vetting was not just limited to the lady or the girl as an individual, but she vetted the entire family. She would look at the whole family, the mother, the father, and the entire clan, how they relate to everybody else in the village, how they relate to each other, and how they relate to their children, and how they bring up their children, their parental skills, their parental compass, as it were, and a whole lot of factors, like looking at whether this family was a well-to-do family, was a successful family, was a hard-working family. So the considerations went beyond just what I as a guy had seen in a lady, just what a lady had seen in a guy, but the auntie would vet the entire family to look. She would look at this guy who wants to marry her brother's child, and she would look at him and check for qualities like hard work. Is he a hard worker? Does he till the fields? Does he harvest good? Does he have cattle? Does he go out hunting with other men? Is he a man of valor? Is he a man who is able to provide and to protect? And then conversely, my own aunt, when looking at a girl who is a candidate for marriage, she would look at the family as well. How have they brought up this girl? And are there any other girls in the family? How have they turned out? And are there any others that have been married off, the elder ones that have been married off? And how are they faring in their own marriages? So this gave a whole picture of who you were going to marry. So marriage was not just about me and the girl that I like, you as a lady and the guy that you like. Marriage was an entire village contract where both families were involved. My aunt on my side of the family would vet the other family, and her aunt on her side of the family would vet me and my family to look, is this guy suitable? Is this guy strong? Is this guy a man of valor? Is he a fighter? Is he strong? Does he wake up early in the morning and go till the fields? Does he wake up in the morning and go and hunt to provide? Does he have cattle that he tends? Does he have some sort of wealth to his name that he can use to support his new family, his potential family? So again, emphasis, when you were marrying into an entire family. You were marrying an entire family. So that explains also why, even in terms of behavior, people were very, 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 very much cultured into behaving morally or in using morals that were acceptable to the entire village. So it was not just about you. It was about how you behaved, as it's a reflection of your family, your background. So marriage today, unfortunately, is just about myself going into the streets or going to church or going wherever and getting into courtship with a girl that I like. And a lot of times in this day and age, what I like essentially entails the physical attributes. But marriage in itself, traditionally in the African setup, was beyond physical attributes. It had nothing to do with someone's skin tone or her body shape or her figure. In this day and age, my basic concern at least at first sight, is, does she look good? Is she pretty? Is she beautiful? Does she have a good body? Is she appealing to me? Do I desire her? Is she a yellow bone? In this part of the world, in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa, there is what we call yellow bones. These are light-skinned females. So a light-skinned female is generally referred to as a yellow bone because the skin tone is basically yellow or yellowish, as it were. So my consideration in this day and age of democracy, where I make my own choices about myself and I, is very, 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 very far removed from the considerations that were placed upon a guy and upon a girl before they would be considered suitable for marriage. So it's a whole lot of issues, and I'll be exploring this in a series of videos for your own benefit, and you can then see if the current model, the Western model that we adopted, the Western values that we now apply, that we now use, upon which our marriages are now based, they are now premised on, do they really work for us? Are they really suitable for us? Or we simply imported these things, or they were imposed on us, but they may not necessarily always have been the most suitable or the most ideal. And if you look at countries that have stuck to their traditions, like you look in the Middle East, in the Arabic communities, or you look in Asia, you look at the Indians and the Chinese, their setup of marriage is basically a reflection of how it's been for thousands of years. They did not really buy into the Western influences. And you'll find out that in those societies, the divorce rate is remarkably lower than it is right here in Africa. It's remarkably lower. In the Arab world, it's very, very rare to find a couple divorcing, but they still apply their traditional methods of marriage, the arranged marriages, and some such. So it's good to look at both sides of the coin and see whether this current setup is the reason why there are so many marriage failures and many divorces, and look at the traditional concept of the African marriage and see if it was always the reason why marriages tended to succeed back in the day.